Hey, John Robinson and Jerry Faust, we've got the annual rivalry game between SC and ND that we want you to coach. Hey everyone, this is Will O'Toole welcoming you to another edition of Park Ridge Sports History. And this week I'd like to journey back a little bit and recall the coaching records and the coaching histories of two famous college football coaches for their time. Of course, Jerry Faust of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and John Robinson, who coached not only in the NFL with the Rams, but also did coach quite successfully at Southern Cal. And I want to delve into their records. And really, in a lot of ways, when I was going through the research on this, I know that really Faust struggled mightily at Notre Dame. In fact, probably maybe some undue pressure. If you recall, he comes out of high school where he was very successful, not just building the Moeller program, Cincinnati Catholic Prep School, but then making them into a monster high school program to the point where he was number one a number of times in mythical national championships among high school prep schools and all the rest. And I recall that I think he finished number one in 1977 when my school, Seton Hall Prep, actually finished first in the state. And I think Seton Hall Prep finished 16th in the country that year. And we thought that was a big deal. And then you realize, wow, what a team Moeller had. And of course, this was a school that Ken Griffey Jr. went to, and also the Larkin brothers, the Larkin brothers in particular, all went on to successfully play either college football, basketball, or professional baseball with Hall of Famer Barry Larkin on that team. So anyway, it was a dream of Jerry Faust to always play at Notre Dame, as many kids, myself included, we always saw ourselves as playing running back or quarterback for the Irish and then leading them to another national championship, always beating SC, a team that when I was growing up, we really struggled with. In fact, the only times that Notre Dame defeated, when I was a kid anyway, the only time they defeated Southern Cal, the Trojans, was in their two championships when I was growing up in grammar school. And that was the 66 season when the Irish went out there after tying Michigan State, something we've talked about in the past on Park Ridge Sports, when they thrashed them 51-0. And John McKay didn't take to the beating that the Irish gave them. And I just remember this. If you see some of the words or the quotes that Ara had said after the 10-10 tie, he knew he had the SC game in his back pocket, meaning that he knew that if there was any kind of struggles or if Notre Dame fell in the rankings, courtesy of that tie with Michigan State, that if he beat Southern Cal, he'd be back on top because they were a machine back then under John McKay. Again, John McKay, it's interesting because I did do some research on this and I'm going to make it relevant to actually John Robinson. And, it only dawned on me after Robinson passed away this week that John Robinson was also the name of one of the main characters in one of my favorite shows as a kid, that Can't Be Lost in Space. And of course, everyone remembers Dr. Smith more than any other character. Oh, the pain, and the robot, of course, and Danger Will Robinson, all that. But John Robinson was quite a coach at SC. And I think he's often overlooked by Trojan fans with what he did. And it probably comes as a result of being the follower of John McKay on the heels of McKay's great dynasty that he had actually built himself at USC. And then Robinson followed him and never got to the number one title, but managed to finish number two 3 separate times. With Jerry Faust, it was a real tragedy. Here's the guy who wanted to be so part of Notre Dame and did anything in his power, always, slept, ate, drank, played like he was a Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Think of the movie Rudy. And didn't make it. As I was reading in one of the obituaries, he actually did get a tryout with Notre Dame. He was a very successful quarterback in high school, gets a tryout. And how's this for a 17 or 18-year-old realizing that he was the 8th quarterback to try out at these open tryouts for Notre Dame. And he realized right then and there, he did not have the ability to compete on that level with the other great athletes that Notre Dame would go out and recruit. So he went, and he also knew this, that Notre Dame did offer him a scholarship, but it was only partial, and he didn't want his parents paying the other part because he knew it was going to be a burden on his parents. And anyway, he goes to Dayton and becomes quite a successful quarterback with the Flyers. Then sets out, gets his coaching career underway, and builds Moeller basically from the bottom up to, like I stated, they were a national, not a state, and not a prep power in Ohio. They were a national power with big-time players attending the school. Then, of course, lo and behold, he writes a letter. It's kind of Hollywoodish. He writes a letter to Notre Dame saying, hey, listen, if there's ever an opening, I would love to be the choice for head coach for Notre Dame. I love it. I breathe it. It's been part of my upbringing. It's in me. I bleed Notre Dame green. You get a job. And to be fair, when he arrives, everyone is kind of going crazy. Now, there are critics, obviously, and probably rightfully so. Has a guy come from the high school ranks? How is he going to not just coach at the next level, college, but really what we consider today Division I? Not only that, at probably the most Notre Dame, without a doubt, is the same brand as the Yankees, as the Packers, as the Canadians, as the Celtics, as the Lakers, and really, I guess, to a certain extent, maybe the Patriots today. But that's what they were seen as. That's that kind of, they were just, they were college football. Lo and behold, he does coach his first game. He does beat LSU in the very first game. It vaults them to high in the rankings. I think they do go to number 1. I do have the stats on that. He beats them. I know he makes the cover of SI. And of course, at the time, everyone said, oh boy, there's the jinx. You make the cover of SI and inevitably something happens the next week. Well, lo and behold, in that particular case, the hex did work because the next week he gets throttled. I'll never forget that. He got throttled by Michigan with Anthony Carter as their wide receiver. They weren't even in the game. And in fact, that year, 1981, LSU, they are going into that number 4, the win over LSU, and it was a convincing win. They vault them to number 1. They lose to Michigan, which was 11th. They drop to 13, and then they don't really recover when you think about it after the loss to Michigan. Yeah, they do finish the season 6-4-1. That year, though, ready for this? They lost to Michigan, number 11. They lost to Florida State, number 20. They lost to SC, number 5. They lost to Penn State, and then they lost to Miami. So he goes out and loses his first 5 against ranked teams. In fact, unfortunately for him, he does seem to get hot. He lost his first 5. He does finish 7-14. He lost his last 4 out of 5. So really, in between that, it looked, but I just say looked, like maybe the Irish were going to turn the corner because against the top-ranked schools, after that horrible beginning of 0-5, and in between and finally that last 1-4 finish, the Irish under Faust, or let's just say that's 5, 9, they were actually 7-5 against top 20 teams, which isn't bad. Isn't bad. Lo and behold, though, what really, really, really destroyed him was the fact that they would always be ranked real high in those first in every year. In fact, ready for this? He was number 10. They lost to Michigan the following year. He was ranked number 5 and they beat Purdue. But then the following week they lose to Michigan State. That was 1983. Then in 84, they lose to Purdue and they're ranked 7th. Then in 1985, they lose their opener to Michigan and they were at the time ranked 13 in his final year. Ready for this? That final year with Faust, they lost to Air Force, which had an incredible team. They were 12-1. They lose to BYU. Had they not lost to BYU, you might have been talking about Air Force playing for a national title. But they lost basically in snow in Utah. Great game. BYU just had a hex over Air Force. Air Force finishes 12-1. They beat Texas in the Blue Bond. I just remember that year. They finished number 5, but that was they lose to Air Force 21-15. They beat Army 24-10. How about this? Army and Air Force were ranked that year 17 and 19 when Notre Dame met them. And then Notre Dame beats Army 24-10. I bring that up because as we are going within the next couple of weeks, Army is playing Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium. And it could mean it is going to be reminders of the 40s when Notre Dame and Army met at Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium, with great glory teams, legendary players, Davis and Blanchard and all the rest of it, okay? So they beat Army, but then lose in succession. Penn State, they lost 36-6. LSU, 10-7. And then the Miami game was an embarrassment for them. They lost it 58-7, probably culminated by a block kick that Miami runs in for a touchdown to really, really put the final nail in Jerry Faust's coffin. I know a lot of people criticize Miami, but listen, these are big boys. And nobody seemed to have a problem when Notre Dame went back in 66, beat SC 51-0 at their place to secure the national title in 1966. So what goes around comes around. Anyway, Faust, in his career, he does play teams that are 370, 269, and 13. Like I said, he went 7-15 against top 20 squads. He does win a bowl game, defeats Doug Flutie and BC in the Liberty Bowl in a freezing cold. Actually, it was a pretty good game in a way. If you liked defense, it was cold. I mean, it was bitter cold. Temperatures in Memphis were about, I think they might have been 0 or nowhere higher than like 20, 25 degrees. And I just remember Flutie always complaining. And I love Flutie, but he hated playing in the cold. And here he is playing at BC, and he had some miserable weather when he was playing there. And here he turns that whole program around. Flutie. That's another story for another day. But he does beat them, loses to SMU 27-20, a game they could have won in 1984. And then, of course, in 85, they don't go bowling as they lose the final 3 games by a combined 46, 58, 104 to 20. I really like Jerry Faust. I think he was classy. He was one of those guys that just loved it. Was a fish out of water when he was at Notre Dame. Maybe today, surround yourself with other kinds of look, he was just in the wrong spot, wrong place, wrong time. Did have some talent on that team. A number of players, including Tony Hunter and Tim Brown, do go on that I can just recall. Blair Keel all went and played in the NFL, at least for a few years. So it wasn't like they didn't have talent. They are Notre Dame. And you should win. I think what happened with Faust, comes in, probably overwhelmed a little bit by the whole thing. A lot of pressure because he comes in with immediately a target on his back. What are you doing with a high school coach at Division I, at the school when you think of college football, at the institution when you think of college football? And of course, unfortunately, he wasn't able to kind of gain any kind of momentum. Yeah, I think maybe this could have occurred. When Holtz comes in, nobody expects Notre Dame to do anything. His first year, he goes 5-6. The next year, he helps produce a Heisman Trophy candidate in Tim Brown. And then by 1988, they win the 89 Fiesta Bowl. By 1988, Holtz, in 3 years, is able to really validate Notre Dame again by winning a national championship, their last one. And then, of course, he could have won another one in BC. That's another story for another day when we talk about Boston College and Notre Dame. But Holtz comes in looking to resurrect the program. Faust comes in expecting, after they had just won a championship in 77 and in 1980 had played, quote unquote, for the national championship, losing to Georgia and Herschel Walker. So people were expecting great things. And unfortunately, the pressure for the players, for everybody, was just too great. Notre Dame went into a dark period those 5 years. Holtz resurrects the program, let's face it, and puts them on their winning ways until, in his waning days, they kind of falter a little bit. And then it was many changes at Notre Dame. Put it this way, Holtz was the last guy to win a national championship for Notre Dame. That's 30 some odd years ago. There are kids, Irish Catholic kids born, who have never seen Notre Dame win a national title. That's unprecedented. They've gone longer now than at any other time in their history, their illustrious history. Yeah, they had 2 moments or 3 moments where they played in the playoffs, but got mauled by the SEC and Clemson. All right, now we talk about John Robinson, who was a great coach, probably underrated. Again, very similar. It's interesting. Faust and Robinson die in the same week, literally a day apart, at the same age, 89. And they did meet twice when SC played Notre Dame in 81 and 82. And unfortunately for Notre Dame, Robinson beats Notre Dame twice. He was 2-0. And then he's kind of, sent packing too in a lot of ways. I know he goes on and he coaches the Rams, and then he goes on and coaches UNLV. But I just want to give you this. Whereas Faust was 7-14 against top 20, losing his last 4 of 5. All right, 2-3 on opening day. Here's what John Robinson did. Robinson was 104, 35, and 4 at SC. That's a 734 winning percentage. Actually, 735. Ready for this? John McKay's winning percentage was 749. He was 127, 40, and 8. And that's where this is coming from. Robinson replaces the legend McKay. And all he does in that time, ready for this, goes 18-8 against top 20 teams, including beating UCLA when they were ranked, including beating Notre Dame a number of times and when they were ranked. The only loss I think he suffers against Notre Dame is 1977. And SC lost that game. That was the green jersey game when and Montana just went off, had some big touchdown passes. Notre Dame just psyched them out in South Bend. They come out with the green uniform. Everybody goes ballistic. It's amazing. They go crazy. So Robinson, ready for this? All Robinson did was this. He finishes second behind Pitt in 1976. Justified, because Pitt had Tony Dorsett. Probably still, over the last 40 years, it's probably the best Eastern team in the last 40 years, that Pitt team with Tony Dorsett. All right? They beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. They have Dorsett as their Heisman Trophy winner. And ready for this? Beat UCLA when they were ranked second. Beat Notre Dame when they were ranked 13th. Beat Michigan, ranked number 2 in the Rose Bowl. By the way, he won. He was 8-1 in bowl games, 3-0 in the Rose Bowl. McKay, 6-3. Now, apples and oranges. McKay was playing when it was the Pac-8. Actually, McKay was with SC when they were the AWU. And I know I'm messing up that letter, but they weren't formally called the Pac-8. Then, of course, Robinson coached when they were the Pac-12, gaining, Arizona State. And so anyway, the following year, he lost to Alabama and Notre Dame, beats UCLA, and beats Texas A&M. I remember watching this game in the Liberty Bowl. That was played on a Monday night. It took the place, like Monday Night Football ended, the NFL, and they were going into the playoffs, so they stuck the Liberty Bowl, and it was a pretty good game. Well, it was another thrashing by SC over another, Southern team. The next year, he beat Alabama in 78. He goes 5-0. This is Robinson in 1978, and yet he finished second behind Alabama. His only loss sustained that year was to Arizona State, a league team. Alabama, of course, I think they beat Penn State in the Sugar Bowl, and they wind up number 1. Now, we can argue. I think Alabama played Wichita State as one of their wins. And you can look at SC. One thing I used to hate SC, then I learned to respect them because to me, they were like Notre Dame. They would play anybody, anywhere, anytime, any day. Just do it. And they really opened up a lot of the paths. And that is really because of John McKay. All right. And to a certain extent, Robinson not being afraid. But in that year, he beat Bama, Washington, UCLA, Notre Dame, and Michigan, Rose Bowl, to finish second. Losing, of course, or falling behind Alabama. Then in 79, beats LSU, beats Notre Dame, ranked number 9. Beats Washington, ranked 15th. Beats number 1, Ohio State. Finished number 2 behind Alabama. They happened to finish 12-0. They beat 3 what are now SEC teams. Tennessee, well, they were in the SEC. Arkansas, now from the Southwest Conference, they're now in the SEC. And Auburn. All right. SC managed to tie. Ready for this? They tied Stanford. 1980, they go 2-1. He does beat Notre Dame. He does lose to UCLA. All right. And in 1980, that was 1980. 81, again, here's Robinson. He beats Oklahoma, which was ranked number 2. Beats Washington State, number 14. Beats UCLA. UCLA had some great teams back then. I forgot about that. I mean, I knew they were good. I never realized they had some really good teams. And then he lost to Penn State. He lost to them in the Fiesta Bowl. And then in 82, lost to Florida, lost to ASU, and then lost to UCLA. And basically that was he finished 9-3, but he goes 0-3 against those teams to finish 18-8. You take that 1 year away, he's 18-5. He's over 750 as his winning percentage. Now, why I think it was unfair for Robinson, who was a really, really underrated coach. Really, that's why I was glad I did the cartoon and I included Robinson in this, is that I think he was unfairly compared to McKay. And McKay was brilliant. Won a number of national titles, okay? McKay had a 127-40-8 record. I will tell you this, though. He was unbelievable against top 20 teams. He was 33-19-4. And here's the deal with McKay. And probably what really served him well was the fact that after the 1966 game to Notre Dame, he never lost to them again until 1973 when Notre Dame wins a national title. The following year, Notre Dame comes in there, take a 24-0 lead right before half, all right, and SC runs the kick. It was just seconds before the half to make it 24-7. Well, SC proceeds to rattle off 55 straight points. Notre Dame is never heard from again. Notre Dame would go on and win the Orange Bowl that year and beat Alabama, and I think prevented them really from winning a national title. But my whole point is this. He beat Notre Dame. He beat UCLA, and he won the Rose Bowls, beating number 1 Ohio State, beating number 2 Ohio State, and beating Indiana, which of course is one of everyone's favorite teams right now in college football, because they haven't seen this type of team out of the Hoosiers since the year they went to the Rose Bowl in 1967 when they lost to USC and John McKay. John Robinson and Jerry Faust both passed away this week. It's really a tale of two coaches when you think about it. One probably pressed by the press, by the fans, and by college football. The other coach never really, I think, got his due because of the ghosts of John McKay. This is Will O'Toole. Thank you for joining us for an abbreviated version of Park Ridge Sports. I'll be back with another episode next week. Thanks for joining us.